Our first speaker is Tommy Grisafi. He's the marketing consultant for Advanced Trading Incorporated. He'll be speaking for 20 or 25 minutes, and then he'll have 5 or 10 minutes at the end of his presentation to take some questions. Go ahead, Tommy.
Thank you, Gary, and good morning, everyone. I welcome your questions, and what an interesting time to be involved in ag. So I have some notes in front of me, and a few months ago, they asked what I wanted to speak about, and I told them the new bull market. And then I was thinking after I named it, boy, I still hope the markets are going up when we talk in a few months, but boy, are they ever going up. So taking a look at the markets right now, I have them up. Corn's up 2, beans are up 10, and wheat's up 12 at the Board of Trade, 10 in Kansas City, and about 8 at the Minneapolis Grain Exchange. So interesting times to be involved in agriculture. There's so many things we could talk about. I was worried this morning I wouldn't be able to fill up this time. So I said, well, why don't you just start with politics? So let's just go there. Politically, in America, things are heated up. In the world, they're heated up. We have a lot of interesting things happening. We have a new administration coming in. We have 10 days till that. We have a USDA meeting today at 11, and that could really move the markets a lot. And the worldview, things have changed. So if I was doing this meeting a few years ago, 2019, 2020, it was always like doom and gloom and try to sell at a profit. And all these people were saying, know your cost of production. And when we get to a level, you got to sell there. So here, let's just go back and talk about, where we are today. Obviously it's 2021, but let's just go back and review what happened in 2020. So a year ago, we're sitting here, markets are low. We're always hoping and optimistic as farmers and people in agriculture. But for a long time, we've had too much product. Now, slowly last year, that changed. And I don't think as many people realize what happened as it happened. But the long and short of it is, if you said, how the heck did we go from $8 cash beans to what could be $14 cash beans? Maybe they're $13 cash beans now. And the wheat market's lagging, but we have a hot corn market with corn with a 5 in front of it. So how did we get there? Well, over the years and over time, I believe the American farmer and the world farmer is really awesome at what they do. And a bunch of things collided in 2020. We had a little virus go around, which isn't funny at all, because at this point, I'm sure everyone here has lost a loved one or knows someone who's passed away. And it really changed the world. But other things happened too, whether it be the windstorm that blew down a lot of grain in Iowa and damaged crops there, or dry weather in Russia, the Ukraine, which has been wonderful at producing crops, actually had a bad year. And then you flip to South America, and they were too dry to plant the soybeans here this fall and this winter. So we've had like 4 problems. Where I live in the Midwest, we've had a really quiet, sneaky, dry August. And so it just quit raining. So yields across the world are down. And while all that's happening, we have a strong dollar. And so the dollar's been rallying, and that's been wonderful. I like trading when the dollar's weak. It's great for commodities and farmers and whatnot. But as we've had a weak dollar, demand picked up too. And the demand picks up because what someone across the world who used to spend $100,000 on some wheat or beans is they feel like they're buying $105,000 worth of wheat or beans. So the world changed, the dollar changed, the supply changed. And so the two things that to create this bull market is that supplies slowly or maybe fast diminished, and the supply was down. So we have good demand and low supply. And that is the story of 2020. Now, some crazy things happened in 2020. We had crude oil trade negative $47. That's just amazing to say that, to look in this camera and say, yep, you could have bought crude oil at 0 and lost $47,000 per one lot. So when people like me get in front of a camera and they say futures and options have risk, and we say that disclaimer, we're not kidding. Markets proved to us last year they can go lower than 0. But once we came out of that and you look forward to today, we're currently trading like $53 crude oil. And right now, crude oil is trading $52.74 a barrel. So things have changed and the world's changing. And one thing about COVID or coronavirus that we've noticed is we may be able to hide inside for a little bit. we may be able to stop the spread or stop elderly from getting it or trying to slow people from getting it. And I guess they say we at some point will hit herd. You don't want everyone to get it once and overrun the hospitals. But what we also saw was that as a world, we just can't stay in and hide forever. And so one of the interesting things, and just talk about something that happened in our life, is that when the virus first hit and I went to go to the grocery store and they said 2 pounds of uh, ground beef is all you could buy, I just drove down the store, went to a butcher and bought 100 pounds of ground beef, bought a new freezer and stocked up. I would imagine, I can only speak for myself, but I would imagine that's happening across the world. So if you said, where'd everything go? Well, people are stocking up on stuff. And that happened in pasta. You definitely noticed that when you went to the store, the pasta aisle. What's more wholesome if you're going to be locked up in your house than a nice bowl of pasta or a nice bowl of soup or a fresh loaf of bread? And so there's a lot of people in the world. I used to say there was 7 billion people in the world. I think it's close to 8 now. So the world's changed and we need to change with it. And one of the things that got people in trouble when we go back and say, but I don't understand, we had so much grain, where did it all go? You should be happy the markets are going up. I just think it happened so fast, it maybe caught people by surprise. But where did it all go? People used it. And so, or countries like Argentina a few weeks ago announced, hey, we're not going to export very much corn for a while because we need our corn internally. And so in the world, and this is what COVID really proved to us, is that everyone's gotten used to just in time. Just I know I can go to America and buy beans. They'll have some. I know I can go to America and buy corn. Well, now if you're listening to this or watching this and you're a hog producer or chickens or anything that takes corn and soybean meal and turns it into something else like ethanol, you have a problem because now one of the bad things of the market going up is that the markets got really used to over the last 7 years from 2014 all the way up to 2020 being able or 2021 being able to always buy corn and it would always be there at affordable price. Wheat has always been affordable. We had a time a few years ago where spring wheat shot up to $8 and something for literally a few weeks and then it came back down to the sixes. So if you're in the world market, don't worry about it. America always has grain. But then all of a sudden, a few months ago, Russia said, oh, we're going to put a little tariff on grain. And then Ukraine said, we don't have so much. And then Brazil went dry. And America said, I don't know what's going on, but it's not there. And we noticed that through our local basis, the futures and options and the spread. So all systems are go. We are in the new modern bull market. COVID has very much helped maybe exacerbate that and accelerate it. And so uh, when you talk about risk management, obviously there's a lot of people watching this who just want to be able to sell grain at high prices. But you have to remember there was a whole crowd who got caught messed up who wanted to buy grain low. And for the first time in many years, they weren't able to do that. And so that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Giving a little checkup here on the markets. Beans up 7, corn up 2.5, wheat up 11. USDA report at 11 o'clock today. It's going to be pretty interesting. So talk about low prices versus high prices. Low prices, they're tough. And look where we're at record low interest rates. And we've had low prices, and there's these people running around telling you if we ever get to your cost production, you need to sell it. It's a blanketed statement. It's something that makes people feel good when markets are low. I look at your cost production that your cost production's your weight. So who's watching this today who's worried about my weight? Maybe when we do Q&A, Gary will say, hey, so-and-so from here is worried about your weight. Your cost production is like your weight. But now cash beans are in the 13s, and maybe you can produce a bean for 9. Corn's has a 5 in it and a 4 in a middle 4s in the back. The market doesn't really care about your cost production. We just went through a really, you should care about your cost production, but the market doesn't care about your cost production. The market's asking you right now, hey, do you have any soybeans? Do you have any of last year's corn? Wheat's kind of hanging out, not quite leading like corn and beans, but the market can do incredible things. And here's the point of low prices versus high prices. It's not often that the market rallies, but when it does, you need to be part of it. And if your neighbor's selling grain at $13 cash and you've sold lower cash, that hurts. They have a competitive advantage over you. So winding back to 2020, one more thing just popped in my head. Never in the history since I've traded grains. I went down to the Chicago Board of Trade on a high school field trip in 1990. Never that I can remember has the United States government handed out, distributed, aided this much farm income into a what I would call exploding price environment. So when you talk about what's happening and you talk about a weak dollar and you talk about just not the United States government handing out money, but governments across the world handing out money, we are in a very dynamic time. And so the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is interest rates. Interest rates are at record lows. So right now, if you want to go get a 30-year mortgage and you have good credit, you can get a 2.75 mortgage. So we have a escalating commodity prices. We have prices of a lot of things going up. We have Bitcoin that a few weeks ago was at 20,000 and then last week was at 42,000. Not that we're all going to leave here and trade Bitcoin, but it's an asset class. It's a new thing. And we have real estate going up. There's people shifting, people moving out of states, moving to Florida, moving here, moving there. A lot of people working at home. And so there's a lot of money in the economy and there's a lot of assets going up. If I had to speculate and talking to my banker friends, land values are going to increase. And everything you own runs a pretty good chance of increasing right now. Used farm equipment increasing, land prices increasing. And what's fueling all that? Record low interest rates. So the economy's hot for some. I wouldn't want to be a restaurant owner right now or own a movie theater or a cruise line. But for 90% of America who's still functioning, the economy's hot. And many people had just received another stimulus check, and the government and the new administration says, we're going to send you more money. Keep an eye on interest rates. As I'm looking in this camera, the 10-year yield is currently at 1.17%. Just a few weeks ago, it was at 9100s. May not seem like a big deal, but when rates go up, they can go up fast. Our government's going to tell us for a long time that inflation's under control. But keep an eye on it because you guys old enough to remember what higher interest rates do. It can really hurt you. So if you have a chance here financially in the next few weeks or month to meet with your banker and talk about interest rates, try to lock in some debt or refinance thing or get that rate locked in, whether it be a home, equipment. Make sure that you're not paying too much for interest, because once that starts to go up, it won't be as easy to refinance. So I like a little inflation. I definitely don't like the opposite of that. That's deflation. So I think for a farmer, farmers carry a lot of debt and use a lot of operating capital. Keep an eye on interest rates. That's all part of marketing. You know, if you ask a cattle guy, how do you make money in cattle? They say you got to buy them right. And with farming, you need to buy your inputs right. So one of the side effects of the market going up is that I really have a fear that 2022 and 23, we could have some really high inputs. Where will those come from? Those could come from cash rents. They can come from fertilizer. They can come from seed. They can come from a rise in equipment. They can come in labor cost. So what if I told you and looked at this camera a year from now, beans could be 1050, corn could be 450, and wheat could be 650, and you couldn't make money, and that there was no more government money being given out, and that, yes, prices were much higher than they were a few years ago, but you were then struggling again. That's my fear for the American farmer. So with this conversation, I'm ultra excited. I'm nervous that there's a USDA report. I was supposed to speak at 11:10 or 11:15 today. I said, I don't think I could do that. Put me first this way. And I'm going to tell you what the report's going to do. Just kidding. That'd be a big mistake. The USDA could give me the numbers right now. So much information is going to come out at 11 o'clock. It's staggering. And so they could tell me what the numbers are, and the market might do something else. And that's what's fascinating about markets. So wrapping up, I want to talk about the markets real quick. Corn market. Last year went as low as 320. It's as high as $5 right now. Incredible move in corn. Last year, beans, lower 8s to upper 13s. Incredible move in beans. Wheat's not quite going up as much as corn and beans, and that's a little concerning. But the most optimistic thing I have for wheat, especially spring wheat, is that when I talk to my growers, I work with a lot of growers in North Dakota. I'm based out of Mayville, North Dakota, and I work with people all over North Dakota and Minnesota. When I talk about spring wheat, there's a group of people who grow sugar beets, a lot of beets in the valley, over 500,000 acres. Well, wheat's a natural rotation there, but there's other people who are on the fringe who have okay dirt that are really starting to question if November 21 beans are $12 and Dece 21 wheat, Minneapolis wheat, 620, should I really plant the wheat? So one of the greatest benefactors of this bean rally could be spring wheat. Keep an eye on spring wheat for the next 6 months or year, and that bull market there comes in the tail when we realize the financial motivation to plant those beans was so great. And there's a lot of interesting things that can happen. A couple things that I noticed. We haven't heard from China in a long time. It's just been an incredible time since we've heard from China or anyone else. And I'm wondering when they'll start speaking or threatening us, or who knows, maybe it's possible that China needed our products so bad that everything's fine with them. But I am really grateful to be involved in agriculture, and I love helping people. But I have to tell you something, and let's go back to politics. There's nobody out there who can help you more than yourself. And although it seems like it's a strange time in America, and it is, America was founded by people being strange. I mean, it's always turbulent. Go ask your father if things were normal. Go ask your grandpa if it was normal when John F. Kennedy was shot. There's a lot of things that have happened to develop in America. Or then Robert got shot, and then Martin Luther King got shot. And so America is always went through a turbulent time. But in agriculture, focus on yourself, focus on your own bushels, and nobody can help you more than you can help yourself. Bull markets don't happen often, and you need to be part of this one. And there's tools, and we could do that in the Q&A if you'd like, and things that we do as commodity brokers that help you. There's all types of tools that you can use, whether it be the futures and options, a bin, precision agriculture to grow more bushels. In the end, we're in the bushel business, and it's our job to feed the world. And you guys are the best at it. And you've just come out of a really rough time. The reason I'm smiling is I had asked a farmer friend of mine to keep an eye out in the mail because these credit cards are showing up. And a lot of people have thrown them out because they look like a gimmick. But he just texted me a picture, and his U.S. stimulus money just showed up in a credit card. And so if you get a credit card and it's black, don't throw it out. If it says United States Treasury, that's the U.S. Treasury actually sending you money. And there's going to be a lot more of that. So I would love to welcome any and all questions. And I'm really excited about the future, but I'm nervous like the rest of you. I look right in this camera, and there's times I have trouble sleeping at night. What's happened the last few weeks and the last few years has been very stressful for all of us, whether it be COVID or politics or losing a loved one or not growing a crop, having too much rain, having not enough rain. And so with that, keep your chin up, and agriculture is going to be great, but you need to be great right along with it. Are there any questions out there?
Tommy, I see attendee has a question, and I'm going to actually allow him to talk. So
that would be wonderful.
Okay. Patrick?
Hi, Patrick.
If you unmute yourself, Patrick, we'll be able to hear you.
We have Patrick on the line, longtime listener, first-time caller. Maybe we could shoot another one while he's getting unmuted.
I don't have any other questions. If anyone has questions, please enter them into the chat. Or if you raise your hand, I can allow you to speak.
There's a question here in the chat box. When will wheat close the gap with corn and soy?
Meaning that wheat's relatively inexpensive to corn and soy?
I believe that's the intent.
Yeah, I think so, assuming that's the question. So we have a report today that could be interesting. We also have the March planning intentions, and that could be really interesting. And then ultimately, although the government and farmers can have intentions of what they're going to plant, you know who's going to determine what you plant? Mother Nature. So we got a couple factors. We got what you think you're going to plant, what you financially should plant, and then what Mother Nature lets you plant. And so it wouldn't shock me at all to see a nice rally in spring wheat, although we have to stay defensive and there's tools to set a floor. But boy, I know how that wheat market is, and you all know too, because if you're watching this, you're probably old enough to remember when Minneapolis wheat in 1 year went from $5 to $25. And so to say that wheat's at $6, could it go to 7 or 8? Absolutely. We just watched beans go from 8 to the 13. So anything can happen. And one of the things I wrote on my notes, and that was a great question, was we need to quit saying, but this has never happened before. It's 2021. There's a lot of things that have never happened. I need you all to stay flexible and stay disciplined. And there's ways of setting floors, but keeping your upside open. And so I do feel that if we could we've had our bull market in beans, heck of a bull market on old crop corn. If we could get wheat to participate, especially Minneapolis spring wheat, we'll have a market. And then you need to capitalize on that and do the right thing.
Tommy, what are your thoughts on the crude fuel market?
That's a great question. I'm a little shocked at how much energy is going up. And so I had a bunch of customers who were, let's say, flush with cash just because the economics of 2020, they prepaid for fuel at 47, 48. I kind of thought it was expensive then. Now we're 52, 53. We need to do our homework and see what this new administration's policies are with the EPA, with drilling. How do they look at that fuel that oil that could come out of North Dakota and pipelines and whatnot? So energy is very important. And the thing that scares me is I'm happy crude's going up because it'll help ethanol and whatnot, but I'm a little worried for ethanol. When you see Tesla go from $100 a share to $4,000 a share, and they're making battery operated vehicles, where's that leave ethanol? So I'm a little concerned for the future, 10 years from now, of ethanol. But fuel's it's trending from the bottom left to the top right, and the trend is your friend. And right now, energies are trending up, and I'm surprised by that. I thought with the COVID and people not traveling and the airlines down, but I think what happened during the COVID again, when you take a market and you take it to negative, it actually stops so much production that the energy folks are being very conservative, bringing that production back online. I hope that helps answer your question.
Yeah, Tommy, how much of your wheat APH forward sell at this point?
Well, whoever's asking that, I don't think you're a customer, but if you were a customer, we would sit down with you and talk about what you're comfortable with. So what part of the state are you in? Are you dry? Are you not dry? So different people have a different percentage of risk that they're comfortable with. I work with people who will not sell a bushel of wheat till it's in the bin. That's just a rule. That's how Grandpa did it. That's how they do it. That's just how it's going to go. I work with people who get forward sold. I'm not as big, so I'm kind of going a roundabout way of not answering your question. This year, because of the prior questions of, hey, beans went up far, corn went up, when's wheat going to go up? Give wheat a chance. What I like, rather than getting really forward sold, because it used to be, if spring wheat gets to 6 or 6.25, we need to get really forward sold. Go back to what I said a few minutes ago and not get caught in that trap of, well, this is what we always do, or this has never happened before. If spring wheat's going to have a bull market, don't you want to take a chance of that? So I like a floor, some type of put, or if you're going to get forward sold, say you get 25% forward sold, buy some calls on that and still keep your upside. So in a bull market, you have to fight for your upside, and you need to use the tools available to you to capitalize on that. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Tommy. Another question, should we be purchasing a put to reown our wheat?
A put would guarantee a floor. A call would be the one to reown your wheat. And so if the question is, should we purchase calls when we sell wheat? I would encourage that. Again, we're in a food crisis, COVID, food insecurity, COVID bull market, supply, demand, Mother Nature threw the world a curveball. Countries like Russia are starting to keep their grain, Argentina. So you have something really precious right now. I would encourage, if the question is, should we sell cash grain and buy a call? Absolutely. That's what people like I do all day long. If you lose your money on your call, you should have a pretty solid cash sale. If you make money on your call, that means you sold the wheat early, which you didn't know at the time. And hopefully, and you should, the mathematics will work, that you gain some of that money back through that call option.
Thanks. Do you have any projections on final carryout for beans and where that puts us in terms of price?
For today's report, we're getting pretty low. And advanced trading is based out of Bloomington, Illinois. Advanced trading has a wonderful research department, and we had a good meeting the other day. And I don't want to scare anyone, but the pipeline's getting low. And so when you talk about 100, the number 100, having 100 million beans left, those are some pretty low numbers. And so the pipeline, the ending stocks will get pretty low here in America. And what'll probably happen is that we will have to import beans. And there could be a combination where it looks like ending stocks are really, really low. And then the combination of ending stocks, some cancellations maybe later in the year for different reasons, and then importing beans could rechange those numbers. So what I'm saying is the pipeline could get really low, and then the USDA could adjust later for imported beans, something we don't normally talk about. But that's a great question. So there's a reason we're $13.85 beans, and that's because we are extremely low on soybeans.
Good. If prices stay similar to today, will corn buy more acres than soybeans?
Well, that's up to you guys. I'm not the one who's going to go plant corn and beans and wheat, but we have this acreage battle all the time. And obviously we can't go back and fill in, we can't create any more beans for last year, but the market should determine that. And then ultimately Mother Nature will determine that. And so farmers love to plant corn. It depends where you are in the country, but corn to me feels a little D's 21 corn at 440. You're going to have a good yield to compete with the beans, but then you have to have a good bean yield. It depends. So if you're a strong corn grower, you probably like that 440 price. If you have ground that's not such great corn ground, but you think you have a decent APH in beans, you may lean more to the way of the beans. So it's a lot of money to plant corn in the ground. It's a lot of work. It's a high cash dollar crop. Wheat's not that cheap anymore to throw in the ground either. But there's something about, I have a client who's going to go plant 12,000 acres of beans in Western North Dakota. That's it. He's not planting corn. He's not planting wheat, no canola. He's rolling in beans. And so it's interesting to watch those mathematics. D's 21 corn could continue to rise as no beans stay firm.
Russia is going to increase their wheat export tax again. Will this have much of an effect on the world wheat price?
Well, I think you're seeing that play into the market today as we speak. Wheat's still up 12, looking at my board here. And that's the countries are, we've went from the world having too much to everyone saying, we don't want to run out of food. So it's one thing to tell people to stay home. It's another thing to tell them to stay home and then have food inflation. So it's wild how we went from too much of everything to Russia raising taxes, Argentina stopping the ship till they have a new crop. And then we're going to find out today how many beans we have left. So great question. It's definitely playing out in the world wheat market. So watch your Board of Trade, your Kansas City and your Minneapolis. And we still have a lot of wheat out in the world. And the interesting thing about wheat is that wheat's being harvested almost every day somewhere in the world. Whereas the bean crop, you only have a couple places going at it where you go northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. But when you talk about wheat, every country in the world at some point could grow some wheat. Corn and beans, not the same. So wheat's one of those things that runs up and the whole world goes and plants wheat. And then a year later, we're at new record lows or low prices. I've noticed in my trading career, no commodity tends to stay up for too long because the price, when the market goes up, it's such a financial motivation for the world to plant. And so the high prices we're having now, or we could have, or we're starting to have, are going to be scary because, as you know, America is not even the largest soybean grower in the world anymore. South America is. And when I was a young guy, South America wasn't even involved. When I first started at the Board of Trade, China wasn't buying beans from anywhere, and South America was just getting into it. So there's a lot of ground in the world that can still be farmed. And if we get high prices, you're going to introduce a whole bunch of people into this game called growing wheat that you don't want involved because they can make a profit. So I'm very scared for long sustained high prices. The party will be fun, but the hangover will be horrible.
Well, thank you, Tommy. We've hit our time. I'll turn it back over to Gary.
Thank you, everyone. My pleasure.